I'm Alex Ben, and I create these videos so you don't make the same classroom mistakes as me. A reasonable outsider might expect that as I greatly improved as a teacher, won awards, mentored my fellow teachers, and had dramatically improved test scores, that my school site administrators would appreciate my efforts and treat me with a reasonable amount of respect. Unfortunately, that was not always the case. As veteran teachers know too well, there always seems to be some opinionated assistant principal who cannot stop meddling in the classrooms, despite their total lack of insight. Mrs. Newman, how can I help you?
Mr. Ben, you must have the standard written on the whiteboard.
I'll do that right away. To be fair, not all administrators are a problem. Many are supportive and helpful. Most schools have at least one assistant principal who is a practical problem solver who gets things done. When the principal who hired me retired, his replacement at Bird added counselors and a dean of discipline position, and was incredibly supportive of teachers, particularly me. And she was especially protective of our newest hires.
Oh my God! Thank you, Mrs. Goodrich.
However, when she retired a few years later, she was replaced by a principal from a wealthier school, who clearly thought she knew better than our teachers and staff. Worse, this new principal seemed to think that if we did everything just like at our old school, then we would achieve comparable results, despite widely differing demographics between the two schools. With little discussion or input, she started unilaterally making changes to match. What she failed to realize was that her old school was not actually teaching students more effectively.
The square root of 196 is 14.
Yes, their test scores were significantly higher, but the neighborhood it drew from was significantly wealthier too. Our test scores had been rising every single year, particularly at the bottom end of the scale, and our results were now significantly better than most schools with similar family populations. Yet, because they had higher absolute scores, in her judgment their way of doing things was best, and she consistently ignored our objections. And we definitely had objections.
We object! We object! We object! We object!
The teachers at our school were incredibly bonded, having survived the worst of times together. We were consulting each other daily and routinely helping each other out.
Thank you, Mr. Ben.
We took in unruly students from each other, sometimes for one class period, sometimes longer, and sometimes permanently. We also were freely sharing our lessons and worksheets, well before there was digital technology that easily enabled it. All the sharing of worksheets and lessons also meant that we were generating a lot of paper copies, and many of us spent a lot of time in front of the copy machine. One benefit of being a Title I low-income school was that we received additional federal money for supplies, including copy paper and ink. The new principal's old school, however, wasn't low income and didn't receive the extra money, although it was hardly necessary. But she clearly flipped out when she saw how much we were spending. One day, I unknowingly replied all to an email and naively questioned why the school was no longer providing teachers with paper. To my surprise, we all received a flaming response from the principal. She attacked me for questioning her budgeting and made it clear that the paper situation was unlikely to change. My colleagues quickly came to my defense, and more emails flew back and forth. But the message was very clear. Our new principal had no faith in the way we had been doing things, despite our record of success. So, when the school year ended, after 12 long years teaching at Bird, I left. I was sad to go at the time, but in retrospect, it was surely the best thing for my own mental health. That next school year, the principal mandated that everyone in our department use the same advanced textbook series as the high school we fed into. We had, as a staff, evaluated this series and overwhelmingly rejected it while I was there, finding it inappropriate for our middle school students, many of whom were still struggling with the basics despite our efforts. 2 years later, they abandoned it and went back to using the previous textbook and the many worksheets and lessons that I and others had created prior to her arrival. Meanwhile, I found a job at another school, hoping to find one that was more respectful of a teacher's autonomy to run their own classroom.